Everybody, we're gonna get started. Yeah. Well, yes, don't get me wrong. There's no background like. No. All right. Everybody ready?
We're ready.
Perfect. Sound good. All right. So finalizing our listing series today with our final sales meeting with objection handling. So big shout out to Eric for spending some time with us this morning. Yeah. We're going to make it as fun as possible. So we're going to let the audience throw some objections at Eric as well. But we have quite a good grouping of questions prepared for you guys already. So a couple upcoming things that we always want to cover. We have our virtual on Zoom sales meeting April 1st. Don't miss it. It's all on spring market mastery. We'll have a guest speaker coming to talk about how they capitalize on the spring market. And then April 22nd, we have how to win in multiple offers. We're pairing that with our multiple offer workshop. It's a hands-on workshop that we're doing that Friday, the 25th. So these two things would be excellent to come to if you ever run buyers in your business. And then we have no sales meetings in the in-between because we have Q2 kickoff, which I know you're all signed up for already. So perfect. All right, let's start with some of our belief systems. Has anybody seen any of these items pop up in their business or their personal life this past week? Would love to hear at least two really good ones before we get started.
I'll jump in.
Thanks.
Of course.
Hit us.
I would say something that came up recently was communication. Seek first, understand. I had a client that I sold a house to a couple of years back, super positive individual. And as soon as I came in to his house, he was starting to be very negative and not be himself typically. All of a sudden, he became very anxious. And as I started touring the house with him more and more, I started hearing the little things about it. He wasn't unhappy with the house. He was unhappy with his taxes getting so high. His payment went up by $1,000 a month because of his property taxes, and he didn't pay attention to it, which he goes, Eric, you told me exactly what was going to happen, and I didn't pay attention, and now we have another $1,000 a month. So he wasn't unhappy with the house. He was unhappy at the end of the day with how his payment got out of control. And we're figuring out a way to sort that out for him. So by the end of the conversation, he was very happy. We had a great plan together, but he stopped picking apart all the repairs that he did and started actually going, this is where I have to go. So seeking first understand is a very important item.
I love that. I'll kind of double down on that. We had, if anyone in the room was on the Zoom call with Jessica last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, our team mastermind that we had virtually, one of her points was that any objection you hear, seek first to understand is probably the first thing that you need to think about in your brain, because the objection you're hearing is seldom the actual reason someone's giving you an objection. So like to your point, if a seller is saying, well, XYZ, it's rarely ever XYZ. And asking questions and discovering is usually always, it uncovers the real reason someone's not willing to work with you, willing to sell their house, wanting to buy, et cetera, et cetera. I love that one. All right, let's do one more. I'll do teamwork. Teamwork. I led my first ALC meeting last week in Lakewood, and one of the two topics that we chatted about that we've put something into play right away was one, some of our brand new agents getting a mentor right out the gate when they join our brokerage. So Carrie and myself are actually working on a way to make that possible for all of our new agents incoming, especially our unlicensed agents, and then our dual career agents feeling like they need something either on the evenings or the weekends. We also have a plan to put at least 3 or 4 classes on the calendar for our dual career agents starting in April. So I think it's really powerful when you kind of like take off your hat of like, I'm doing this and I'm making the right decisions and I'm doing the calendar correctly, and then hear a greater body of people than just yourself. I think the benefit for everybody is so much bigger. So teamwork, I really appreciated my meeting with the ALC, and I loved seeing them in person for the first time. So anybody else have one before we keep going? You guys are quiet today. No coffee yet? All right. Red Day, everyone's favorite day. So just a teaser. This is going to be coming May 8th. Carrie, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Oh,
Allison?
I can.
Yeah.
So we have two fan favorites coming back again, Medwish and Fatima. I believe we've done those for at least 10 years. Medwish, you sort supplies. Fatima, you party with the old people. We have two YMCA's this year. We have the East Side YMCA that we've gone to a couple of years. We're painting in there. West Side YMCA is a new building, so we're doing yard work there. One of the reasons that we help out the YMCA is because the YMCA is a charitable organization that is funded in part by a gym facility. Most people think they're just a gym and swim, and why don't we go to Lifetime Fitness? But they're not. They really are a charity. Ohio Guidestone is a new charity for us. You know, we're always looking for new places, particularly on the west side. It is a home for and a center for children and adolescents in peril. Ronald McDonald House. This year we got beat out by a big corporation, so we're not doing mulch there. We're putting together and assembling to-go bags for the families that stay there to bring to the hospital with them. Big Hearted Blooms is another first timer for us. They collect flowers and rearrange them in vases. Typically the flowers come from funeral homes, and rearrange them in vases and deliver them to hospitals. And then we are partying at Masthead Brewery again. Be there or be square.
Love that. Love that. I
And the other one is Matt Chase. He always does something that involves heavy equipment in Vermillion.
I just saw someone else, I can't remember who it was, on Instagram using Big Hearted Blooms, and that is such a good idea.
Yeah.
That is such a pretty, I love
Oh,
that.
it's got common threads.
Oh.
That's the night before. That is again another charity / thrift floor store. And we sort clothes for them. And that's the night before for dual agents and people that just can't do.
Where is that place?
Yeah.
It's on the west side. Do you remember what street it's on? Maybe Lorraine?
Yeah, it's like the Fairview Market
Yeah.
area.
Love that. Love that. Perfect. All right. So April 26th or 16th? April 16th. Instead of your typical career night that you see on the calendar every single month, we're changing it up just a little bit. So this is 10 things they didn't teach you in real estate school. So this is still going to be targeted to all of our unlicensed folks that are in Hondros or in any kind of real estate school that are exploring Greater Metropolitan as their brokerage of choice. But this is also for any people who have been licensed for a year or less and have sold 0 real estate that are at other brokerages. So they can come learn about Greater Metropolitan. And then there's going to be an action piece. So this month specifically, there's about 30 minutes of discussion on Greater Metropolitan and the brokerage and what we can do for them as agents. And then the next 30 minutes is putting together a GPS so that they can understand how to get into production right away once they either join us or pass their test. So if you know of anybody that fits the criteria for this class, send them my way. We love hosting you. And if you just want to come check it out yourself and see what it looks like, please feel free to join us. I would love to have you. All right, our April calendar. It is a really valuable month. I've been saying for a couple weeks now, if there's one thing that you come to, you should join us on April 8th, which is our Q2 kickoff. We're getting more and more excited as we get closer to the event. Our guest speaker is really, really impressive. Not to give too much away, but he's going to be talking a lot about how he grew his mega business by hosting small mini events throughout the year to just grow his database. So this is a really interesting one. And then a couple of your own Greater Metropolitan agents are going to be doing kind of like a How I Built This series with Chris Burns and myself. So it's definitely a one to not miss. I'm trying to think of one of my other favorite things that are going to be on the calendar. Just so you can, if you wanted to pick 2, you could pick 2. Honestly, it would be that multiple offer mastery workshop on the 25th. We're going to have an actual home that's listed in the MLS as the house that we are all writing on. You'll all receive different pre-approvals with different guidelines on what your buyer can actually do in the offer. And then we're going to collaborate on how to strategically use FHA, VA, conventional, cash, all kinds of different offers and the tactics to get your offer accepted. So that's a really good one as well. If you haven't RSVP'd, please do so. Does anyone actually need this QR code? Good, sounds good. All right. The Black Realtor Network, coming on April 17th, they're hosting from 5 to 7 p.m. It's actually here at the Pepper Pike office, and they are hosting their icebreaker event. So this one's going to be a little bit more casual. Really, it's just going to be something where we're all discussing what you want to see out of BRN this year, and kind of just discussing. You want to take it away? Did I nail it?
I'm ready.
Did I nail it?
First event of the year, so we're looking forward to connecting with everybody, kind of learning what they want to see this year. It's going to be at the Pepper Pike location from 5 to 7. We'll have a little food if you're hungry. Looking forward to seeing dual agents as well there. So we excited for the evening.
I love it. Love it. Any questions on that one? Perfect. Partner updates. Ohio Real Title. Mr. Rick.
Janelle's lucky. She's in the Dominican for the week with her family, so you're
love
stuck
it.
with me.
I love it. Love it.
So tomorrow, I know that we and Cross Country are sponsors for that young teen mastermind they have at 3 o'clock. So if anyone's interested in, I think that's built around listings also. So if anyone didn't sign up and wants to, you can just go to their Facebook page and RSVP for that. And that's at their office or their luxury office down the street. And then also transfer on death affidavits. I'm sure you guys have heard of these in the past. If not, it's an easy way to transfer your property outside of probate. So if mom owns the house and she's worried about what happens to it, she can name maybe 2 of her daughters as the people who are going to essentially inherit that. And it, like I said, it avoids probate. And something I didn't know that I just learned about that was when this happens, to file it correctly with the county, you're supposed to have an affidavit and a copy of the death certificate. That is really only for public notice. So the 2 daughters would actually, upon mom's passing, would be the owner. So if you are taking a listing from someone like that, they don't have to have that affidavit already down at the courthouse, getting it in their names. They are legally allowed to sign themselves as the owners, do the purchase agreement and everything. And then through closing, we would just help get that affidavit tied up to basically make that all good with the county. So if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to ask me. Go ahead, Eric.
Actually do, if you have that and it goes from the husband to the wife and the wife passes first, can it go husband to the?
So the situation I had was the husband and wife actually had set it up. So then the husband died, then they did the affidavit to put it in the wife's name. Then when she died, it went to the children from the original transfer on death affidavit. So they can do it while 2 people are still living. And then it would just, so long as their deed had survivorship language previously. And the reason why you wouldn't maybe want to put somebody on a deed would be for tax reasons, for liability reasons, because you could just put them on a deed with like survivorship language or children. But for many reasons, they might not want to be on that deed at the time that you're still living in that house. So that's why the transfer on death affidavit, they have no ownership until the passing of the last person. Cool with the tool.
Love it.
All right. Cool.
Thanks, Rick. All right. America's preferred. Not today. Perfect. All right. CCM.
Sean is at a doctor's appointment. If you need him, he will be back at like 10 a.m.
Perfect.
Rates, not much changing there. Kind of the same as where we were last week. Fed didn't do much. Watching unemployment and inflation. Probably more updates on that in the future. Instead, what I wanted to talk about today is student loans, both private and federal student loans. We're seeing a lot of those kick back in. There was a period of time there where maybe they were in forbearance or maybe you had a real low payment. For some people, especially students that graduated during the pandemic, they might have never made a student loan payment yet. We're seeing those just automatically kicking back in where a payment's due. If you didn't log back in, you didn't check, you now have a late payment. We had 5 borrowers in the last week where they're saying, oh yeah, we got a 780 credit score, no problem. Pull their credit and it's 150, 200 points lower than what they expected because they have all these late payments on their student loans. Some people don't realize unless you consolidate your student loans, every semester you took one out, you get an individual trade line on your credit report. So if you went to school for 4 or 5 years, you might have a dozen individual loans that show up on your credit report. You miss one payment and now you have 30, a dozen 30-day lates on your credit, and there it goes. I mean, we just heard Rick and I at the last meeting we were at firsthand from 2 people. They said, yep, I missed one payment and my score dropped 150 points. So if you're like, looking for reasons to reach out to your first time home buyers, obviously you can have student loans if you're buying your second or third home, but looking for reasons to reach out to people that are shopping here in the spring, might be a good time to say, hey, have you checked in on these, just to make sure you're in the best position to buy a home here moving forward. Any questions or anything?
Nope. I like that you mentioned that because it took me like my all of my student loan and all of that information comes to an old email that I rarely look at.
Yeah.
And I almost missed it. I'm like, I was about to be, formally late to my credit.
Yeah.
It's a good tool just to reach out to clients.
When you do make that payment after it's late, after the 30-day late payment, how quickly does your score go back up?
That 30-day late will be on there.
For how long?
Yeah, it's going to be now to be listed under derogatory with the late payment. I mean, one of the people we were talking to at the meeting earlier, she said she missed one. She's still trying to get her score back up. So it's best to avoid it up front. I mean, firsthand, I just checked. I manage my wife's student loans because I'm a great husband. But I just checked hers the other day because I was nervous about this. And May 1st, we have her payment starts back up whether we like it or not. So I immediately set up auto payment on that. So that taken care of.
Awesome. Is there anything they can do? I know that I had a client one time that I think Sean saved. We had to like go in and pay for deletion or something for them. Is there anything you can
I wish he was here because I don't know. He might have, done something. Maybe if you reach out to the bureaus, you could work something out. But in my experience, once you've got a 30-day late on there, you're kind of stuck with it. The other part of that is if they're going to apply for a government loan like USDA, FHA, VA, we run what's called a CABRS report. It's like a report to make sure they don't have any delinquent federal debt. Well, if they miss a payment, now you might have an issue with that. So now you got to bring all those current. So you've got more money out of pocket and it could be a nightmare.
Awesome.
Sorry, yeah. The good news update.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where's Sean when you need him, right?
Yeah.
All right. Tori or Liz, are they here today? Leverage Center? Okay, no problem. All right, David,
Mortgage.
do you have any good news for us?
I'll add one thing on the student loans. We actually had a borrower trying to get an income-based repayment plan. The Department of Education is basically shut down right now. You can't even contact them to do anything about it. So it's a problem right now. What I was going to talk about though is a way to help get more people moving forward with selling their house and then moving up to another house. A lot of people don't have the money for a down payment on the new house. They don't want to sell they don't want to buy until they sell their current house, or they may not be able to qualify with that. So I'm sure most of you know what a bridge loan is. That's taking equity out of your current house to use for the down payment. But now you have a second loan and you still have that house to qualify. A lot of people can't qualify with 2 mortgage payments, even though they have the money for the down payment on the new house, they can't qualify with that debt load. So we have a great option. It's a hybrid bridge loan. It gives them the equity out. It also allows them to take $35,000 to use for improvements on their departing residence. So they can fix up carpet, paint, kitchen, small items to get it ready for sale. They can even use $5,000 for its moving expenses. And then they'd have no payments on that, no interest for 6 months. So they have a 6-month window to now move into the house and find another property. And we don't count that payment against them. So they can qualify for the new house very easily. So good option that when you're talking to people that are kind of hemming and hawing and hesitating that, I don't want to sell right now because I'm just going to wait for whatever reason. They're a good option to get into it.
Love that.
Well,
Perfect. Cool. Eric, you ready?
Ready?
All right, cool. Before we get started, I would love to just really quickly show of hands. I was gonna make you guys stand up, but I feel like raising hands is the energy we're being met with today. So raise your hand if you've ever been on a listing appointment. Love, cool. And then raise your hand if before you started lead generating, you were really nervous about the objections you were gonna get. One, couple, perfect. Okay, great. And then who in this room works mostly with buyers? Cool. All right. Awesome. Just looking for different experience here. And then if there's one thing you're looking to get out of Eric's class today, what would that be? Wow, you guys are just here on a blind trust. I like it.
One thing really to close the listing appointment.
Close a listing appointment. Think we could do that?
What else? I'm sure there's other, did 5 of you raise your hands when you said that, when she asked if we
Listing
were
appointment.
afraid of objections?
I did.
The rest of us liars, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of us had that challenge, so.
I want to hear how other people handle objections. You know, when we're out there doing our job, we only know how we do our job. There's probably everybody in this room is saying stuff better than I do.
I like that. I like that. Do we have your video for?
No, we'll hang on to that.
Hang on to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Help.
You want to watch it now?
No, it won't let me do
This
anything.
goes back and there.
Okay, awesome. All right,
All set?
so I would love to start with some actual objections, and if there's something that you like to start with prior to just jumping in and going crazy,
Sure.
you tell me.
I've got a handful of items here, but go ahead, fire away. What are the objections you're concerned about currently? And if you don't have your notes out, if you do have the ability to take notes, go ahead and grab them.
Where am I gonna go if I sell this house?
Okay,
Is your permission to go?
no.
Do I have to pay a buyer's agent?
Oh, there we go. How many of you are getting do I have to pay a buyer's agent?
Yes.
We are getting that still? Oh, Kate's coming up there. Perfect.
Do I get the equity to pay for my down payment on the next?
That's a great question. Talk to David Goldberg.
Do
Did
I
you get
have
that
to
one, Kate?
stage?
Do I have to stage?
He's gonna answer that.
I want to think about it. I want to think about it. Any,
Is it the right time with the one keep right now?
we've got that one, yes.
I am interviewing other agents.
Mm. We have that one as well. Any others that you're concerned about, afraid of, were afraid of, possibly, used to be afraid of?
I don't wanna have to pay for any repairs.
Mm. I'm selling the house as is until the home inspection,
Yeah.
until the appraisal, until the point of sale.
Another one I heard is, oh, you don't live close enough to me.
Yeah, that one's going away compared to what it used to be, yet it's still here. How many of you have been in the business more than 10 years? If you remember, like 10, 15 years ago, we had offices in every city. My first office was in Chesterland. I could not sell a house in Russell next door. It was like, that's a completely different agent. Like, look out. Same school district, but
Crazy.
yeah, don't go another 2 miles down the road. But yes, we still have, the east side, west side, or, certain areas are still absolutely that. We still have that. All right. Any others that anyone has? While you are thinking of it, don't trust your memory, write it down. Because I'm sure more of more ideas are going to come through, but let's go ahead and get going here.
The one I really like, just for, because I know not everyone in the room raised their hand if they've ever been on a listing appointment. I really like the idea of, I'm hesitant about working with a newer agent. The other agent I've interviewed said they've been doing listings for 30 years. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about that one too, for the people who have never gone on an appointment before.
The next question after that I love as well, which we'll get to,
Yeah.
which is pretty.
Yeah.
Not quite, but you'll see.
Instagram.
Yeah. All right. So let's first start with what actually is an objection. So does anybody know who Mike Ferry is? Anybody know who Tom Ferry is? Tom Ferry is the famous son now. Mike Ferry was his father and still is a coach. He's a phenomenal coach. A little bit too blunt for my taste, yet he's very sharp and he's been doing it for a long time. One of the things that he said when I was in his coaching program was an objection is simply this, and you can write this down. It's a question in the mind of a buyer that is left unanswered. I'll repeat it. It's a question in the mind of a client, you could even put, that is left unanswered. So one of the questions that someone brought up was about like staging. Many of us would go, well, that's just a question. Well, it is just a question. So are all the rest of them. Will you reduce your commission? That's a question. It's left unanswered. By the way, has anyone ever asked if somebody will reduce a fee for them? I hope more of us, right? Often it is just a question. It doesn't mean that they're expecting it. How does it feel though when they ask us that?
Feels like an objection.
It feels like they're like, I need you to reduce your commission, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes they're just going, is it negotiable? I don't know if this is a structured fee that you have with your company or your brokerage, if you're allowed to do this or who's allowed to reduce these commissions. I'm just curious. So it doesn't mean that they're always trying to beat you up. So I'm not going to go through this. Many of you have seen it though, and I think it's almost kind of silly the way the guy presented it on a video that I watched, but it talks about how you're handling conversations or being blunt. And he had somebody stand up in front of the room and he goes, walk beside me. Now, if I asked any of you to get up next to me and walk beside me, what would you do? I walk back and forth. What would you do?
I'd get up and walk back and forth with you.
Very simply. Now, Allison, if I said, put up your hands and I pushed against your hands, what would you do?
You push back.
That's exactly how we work. If we're pushing against somebody, they're going to push back. If we're walking alongside of them, they're going to walk alongside of us. Without instruction, I didn't tell Allison, to simply follow my lead. I just said, walk next to me. I didn't tell her to push back, but she did because that's our natural instinct. Really important when we're objection handling. What do we automatically think about? Are we trying to walk alongside the person or are we trying to push against them?
Mm-hmm.
Often we're trying to push against them and get that smart aleck response and go, I gotcha. There are times for that. Most of the time, that's not how I'm going to tell you to handle objections. We want to be able to walk alongside of our clients and help them. A lot of people think a great salesperson is somebody that can sell, what's the old saying of selling ice to an Eskimo? That's not a great salesperson. That's somebody that's more along the lines of a con artist. A great salesperson is somebody that's trying to help their customer, help their client achieve the results that not only that they want, but possibly they don't even know that they want. They're going to take something, we're going to be talking about arguing from the fringes. Has anybody heard of that statement before? Arguing from the fringes? It's taking one little aspect of a very complex equation and go, look at this, I can't do this because of blank. We need to take into consideration, what are their goals? What are they looking to achieve? Essentially our job is to help our clients make good decisions. A couple of quick notes, and you'll want to write these down. Number one, most important thing about handling objections is listen to your client. Listen to your client. Really important. A podcast that I listen to talks about how to listen to understand, not listen to what?
Respond.
Thank you. We don't want to listen to respond. We want to listen to understand. Think about what that means. If you're really good at this, you should be able to take whatever somebody is telling you and describe it better than they could. It's a great way to figure out how either arguments or conversations can develop into an actionable positive item at the end of the conversation. So yeah, really important. If you can do this, you're vocalizing them better than they can themselves. Number two, we need to confirm whatever they are stating. So again, repeat what they have stated, repeat their problem, and do it better than they can actually state it. Number three, we want to isolate. So if this happens, then this will happen. So beyond everything else going on this transaction, if we solve the commission question, are you ready to sign today? Has anybody ever had a client that you resolve one of their objections and they jump right to another objection? Right? And then you solve that one and it's another one. Can you reduce the interest rate, David?
But yeah, yeah.
Great. We resolve that issue. And then I go, well, your fees are too high. And then his fees aren't too high. I'm giving a broad example of a client that can do this to us. Then his fees aren't too high. Well, I'm not ready yet, or I haven't found the house, even though we have a contract, whatever it might be. They're going to continue to give a different problem. So we need to isolate it. Number four, one of the most important parts of this is going to be showing them their options. We want to lay out their options. Often when these objection handling sessions come up, it's if a customer says this, a client states this, then I'm just going to quickly throw this objection at them. And we will do some of that, and I'll give you some great ideas. Yet we want to solve what their problems are and give them a handful of options. What are we on? Number 5. Ask them what their next action should be, and then number 6 is going to be the follow through. Really important, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you. We want to be able to focus on the outcome at the end of the day. These are quick notes before we get into, these are just like side notes. They're just general rules for objection handling. Number 1 is you want to be listening more than speaking. Number 2, silence is your best friend when used correctly. That means A, B, C, and D. So B would be silence is your friend when used correctly. C is going to be more important than what you are saying is how you are saying it. There's a podcast I listened to recently that talked about how you could give a great salesperson terrible scripts, and they will close more deals than the person who does not know how to use their tone, their body language, all of these other tools. And we'll talk about what those are if you give them great scripts. I want you to think about that. A great salesperson can use bad scripts and still close the client. A terrible salesperson can use the best scripts and still not close the deal. All right, what are those couple of items? Posture, tone, how much you hesitate. Be careful when you are saying but, all of the things that they teach us in bold. Confidence, appearance, and preparation. If you can walk into a listing appointment and they ask you about the listing down the street, you want to go, I'm not sure about that. Or did you prepare ahead of time and go, I already know that house, it sold for $483,722, and go from there. All right. Well, let's go ahead and head into these objections. So the first one that we had, actually, let's hit this. Where am I going to? Where am I going to? So how many of you have heard that objection? So this is honestly walking them through that conversation. This isn't even an objection. It's where am I going to? And I believe, who stated that one?
I think Allison.
Me.
Allison. So that one's more of like, I don't want to sell because I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Right? Great. Let's actually tackle this together. These are just an action plan together. So Allison, let's go ahead. What areas do you want to move to, Allison?
Well, I'm downsizing. Right now I live in Cleveland Heights, maybe lose the big taxes.
Okay. What areas would you consider?
Someplace fancy.
Someplace fancy. Sounds like it fits you perfectly. What are some locations that would work well for you?
Something that would be walkable, doesn't necessarily need to be urban, maybe like a golf course community but there's never anything on the market. I've been watching Aberdeen for 6 months, and as soon as something comes on the market, it sells right away.
Absolutely. So our biggest challenge is finding you a property in Aberdeen.
Yes.
Okay, if we did find you a property in Aberdeen that was downsizing and you ended up having lower taxes, would you be ready to make the move and list your house?
Absolutely.
What did I just do there?
Turned open around and said, gave her a solution.
I'm asking, right? I'm asking the questions. I did give her a solution. I also isolated. That's how we're isolating, right? Now our only focus is how do we get a house in Aberdeen? Again, we are problem solving. So when you list your house with me, what we will do, and I'm going to problem solve for her. Should I just go ahead and have her buy a house if she can't afford it right now?
No.
It's not a good salesperson. It's a con artist, right? So what we will do is we'll now put a plan together. How are we going to find a house in Aberdeen? Can I send mailers out for every door direct mailing for all of Aberdeen?
Yeah.
Is it possible that I could also get listings doing that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Can become the agent for Aberdeen?
yes,
Can I possibly find a house that's not on the market doing that?
Yes.
yes.
I also have expired listings for the last 5 years that possibly haven't transferred. Would you like to see those, Allison? If it's something you're interested in, would it be okay if I knocked on those doors?
Mhm.
So we're handling that. Perfect. So I would say though, I would want her to list her house yet. I would probably say, let's find that house, make the offer contingent. Let's make sure your house is ready for photos today or as quickly as possible. Let's have it ready in the MLS. The moment that we find it our house, we're gonna pull the trigger, get your house listed, have it sold in 30 days. Sound good?
Mhm.
Go ahead and
Yes.
sign here. That's how we move on. So it's isolating the objection, problem solving with your client. Any questions on that one?
I think like for me, it's really powerful to just change your mindset in the beginning of this isn't an objection, it's an observation or a question.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like the example you gave of like your natural instinct is to push back. Like I think naturally we would, if we hadn't considered that before, been like, well, there's plenty of houses on the market, you're just not seeing them.
Yes.
And that feels a lot different than, oh, I'm understanding that you only want to live here. If
Right.
we can solve that, would you do it? That made her probably feel a lot more comfortable and didn't insult her in any way.
Exactly.
Which I think like my natural instinct would be to, there's a lot of houses out there
Right.
instead of what you just did. So I think that that's really powerful to change your mindset going in. I think that just helps you communicate. Even if you're not objection handling, you're just talking like a
That's-
normal person.
That's the way it should
Yeah.
be, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to absorb these, not push back at them,
Mhm.
right? These are real concerns. Should it be a concern of her that she has not found a house?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's a real concern for somebody looking to move.
sure.
So we should absorb that and go, yes, I hear what you're saying. So what's the next one we have? Is your commission negotiable?
Yeah, Eric, you're great, but the agent down the street said that they would do it for like 2%. Would you be willing to negotiate your commission?
That agent specifically, what were they doing for you?
They were gonna list my house.
Okay. So at this point, I rarely get this objection. I'm gonna pause. Why do you think that I rarely get this objection?
Because of your value.
Pardon?
Number one is going to be our value, but number two, by this time, what has happened? I won't talk about commission until what happens.
Address all their
Solve the
concerns.
problem.
So they're really
Major.
thinking about really doing this.
Right, during our coaching sessions, we used to do all the different steps of a great listing presentation, and a great presentation will leave little to no questions unanswered by the client. I won't talk about commission until I've presented my value. So if they ask me what my commission is, that's a great question, Kate. We're gonna go over that. That's gonna be the second thing we actually talk about when we meet tomorrow at 2:00. Sound good?
Perfect.
Perfect, and I just delay it. If she pushes on that, the moment we sit down, I say, that's a great conversation to have. We actually have that as step 4 during our conversation today. We'll get to that in a moment. More important to me though, Kate, is why are you looking to move?
Yeah, I love that.
And then we go into that. So if this comes up though, and it often comes up not so much as that they don't see my value, it's that there's an agent down the street that is doing it for 2%. And now I will have to address that even if I had a great listing presentation. So number one lesson learned for all of us is strengthen your listing presentation. Do you have a great value what? Value proposition. When you have something value, what is the only conversation? Commission and or price, right? And that goes in everything that we do. We have to be looking at what are we truly giving to the client. Mike Arco, I remember we sat in that bathroom and he goes, Eric, I'm not doing anything different. This was his like first group coaching. He goes, I'm not going to be able to do anything different than any other agent on MLS. By the time we were done with that conversation, it was like you opened up an entire world of the different things that we can do and care for our clients. We use something called a firing line script. Does anybody remember what that is? I won't call on you. You do. A firing line script is a bunch of fired questions that are pre-thought out. Now, you really have to get a client to say, I want to hear these from you first. If you just throw them at them, they're not going to care. But if they ask that question, what are you doing that's any different than any other agent? I go, great. Well, number one, we talked about doing the open house on Sunday and launching the activities on Thursday to call 50 agents on Friday before that Sunday to actually attract them to your house, right? Number two, are you doing a Matterport virtual tour? The last what?
Wow.
What the heck is that? That's great. We'll go over that later. Number three, I'm trying to get a quick of like, no, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this. Great with for sale by owners expired and your average listing. Number three, when you list your house, what are the actual actions you're going to be expecting from your agent? Just put it up on the MLS. I would hope more than that. Number four, are you going to, when I list the house, I'm going to door knock 50 houses, 25 on each side, invite them to the open house. Number six, I'm going to do virtual staging or real staging. Number eight, I'm going to do a Facebook ad. I should have about 75 to 100 clients that come out, reach out to me. Probably only one or two are real buyers. Maybe they end up buying, maybe they don't. When you talk to this agent with 2%, what is he doing for you?
He didn't tell me. He just said he sells a lot of houses and that he does it for cheaper than everybody else does.
What's a lot of houses, Kate?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't know.
Real important, show, don't tell. Our office is a superpower. Use your office. Literally, go to Mayfield Heights or whatever you want and compare it to another agent's office. You will watch pages of sold homes. From the other agents, you'll see 4. And show them, go, here's what the other agent did. Here's what our office did. Which one do you like? Page of lists of 10, 15, 20 homes. Show, don't tell.
If you weren't at Jake's listing presentation, he talked about doing that with our office too. I loved this statistic. For the agents that say I'm going to do it for a lot cheaper, he always came from a place of my concern for you is that they just want to take your listing, not that they want to sell your house, and then showed their average days on market versus price decreases for every listing that they took. So I love that. I think coming from a place of like, I'm doing this for you because I care about you,
Right.
instead of like, well, that's the commission, I think
Yeah.
is pretty powerful.
So we talk about 2 different ways of handling that. A third way, which can work, it depends on who you're talking about. If you don't know disc profiles, learn them. Understand who you're dealing with. One of the great things that Diana used to do, Diana Kokoska, who knows that name, by the way? She invented Bold. One of her favorite ones was, Kate, you want to reduce our commission, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what really concerns me about that?
What?
This agent that's doing this for 2%, is that his money or yours?
Oh, I mean, his money.
That's his money. Before you even gave him the listing, he was willing to reduce how much money he was receiving. How do you think he's going to treat negotiations when he's dealing with your money?
Oh, that's a good point.
Do you want somebody that's actually going to negotiate to get you the most amount, or somebody that's willing to even give away their money? They don't see the value in themselves.
At what point do you talk about, if at all, what point do you talk about or turn around and say, like, let's talk about the net amount of money that you're going to be making?
Very important. Do you think sellers know what they want to sell their house for or how much they net? So let's see if by show of hands, I want you to really think about this. If you are selling a house or one of your clients are selling their homes, do you think that they know more? Raise your hand if you think they know their sales price, what they want to sell for. How many of you think that they know their net that they want to receive more? Now it's always an odd question. Both of you, I would argue, are right in certain ways. They all know what they want to sell their house for because they've seen these estimates. What's more important than
They know.
only what they know,
Yeah.
right? Their ego, though, says my neighbor sold for blank, or my estimate says blank, so I want blank plus blank, right? Just like Kate said, one of the strongest things that we did, which by the way, only shows a dollar amount in your commission. What are all the other agents doing? Are they doing dollar amounts or percentages?
Yeah,
So you're extracting yourself. Are you disclosing exactly what your commission is? The amount of times that I've said, here's your all of your fees, your net sheet, you can get this right from Rick. You can go right on to Ohio Real Title. And I will go straight down. Here's this line, this line, this line. The moment you get down to the net, where are their eyes going? Your commission or their net?
they're not.
100% their net. And I literally, the closing line that I would use at that point is one of my last parts of my listing presentation is if I physically like slide my hand across the table and I said, if I slid you a check for $48,322, I know we're selling your house for $450. But if I slid you a check for that amount and you were able to move to your house in Broadview Heights for $500,000, would that achieve the goal that you're looking for?
I love that.
Way more impactful than trying to go back and forth between 1% and 2%.
I love that.
Where are you getting that $48,000 from?
The nets that they've given me. So part of my listing presentation, if your number is going to go and do a net sheet for them.
Okay.
Because the last thing you want to do is sell a house to somebody and then all of a sudden they go, I have no money to buy the next house, or I didn't know the fees were that much, or the taxes, or whatever it might be. So I break those numbers down. But again, really important takeaway, when you do a net sheet, you're not showing your percentage. You're showing the dollar amount, which they cannot compare to the other agents because all the other agents gave them what? 6%, 5%, 8%, whatever the number is.
Yeah, I love that.
So thanks for bringing that up.
I think this segues, oh, Rick.
When you do your listing presentations, obviously you gather as much information as you can. Do you bring pre-made net sheets or do you do them at the table?
I do them at the table on my computer. I would not recommend doing that unless you're very comfortable with those apps with the website.
Yeah.
Very simple to do. Where is the biggest mistake made when you do a net sheet?
Taxes.
Prorated taxes, 100%. And if you have not sorted that out in your mind, sort that out. Very important.
I think that leads perfectly into the next objection, which is, well, do I have to pay a buyer's agent? I've heard everywhere through NAR and the news and Instagram and Facebook that we don't have to do that anymore.
Quick show of hands, how many of you have done a deal where the buyer pays their buyer agent? And out of those deals, how many have had more than 5% of their business that way? Okay.
I mean, I work with a lot of investors too, so they know what my minimum is.
Yeah.
So if I'm only getting 500 from them, they already know they have to pay the rent.
Right.
Did you have to have that conversation a lot pre-NAR too as well because of the investor buyer?
No, I just, when I first got licensed and I started to work with investors, which is kind of my background,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lot of work for about 600.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I increased that right away to about, I did 6 deals with one person, increased it to 1,000, and now we're just set at 3,500.
I love
And we
that.
had those conversations in the beginning, with selling lower price homes. Of course, there may not be leverage on the selling.
Yeah.
But we could try. Sometimes we get 1,000, 1,500, but they already know that.
Love that. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, the way I would handle that is pretty simple. Yes, you still can pay a buyer commission. I'd highly recommend it, especially depending on your price range.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with a first-time home buyer, are they really excited to pay their buyer agent?
No.
I'd argue that I would say from our mortgage people in the room, there's probably a 95% chance that they don't have the funds to pay their buyer agent.
So
Or you can move up here.
Yeah.
even with
Yeah.
buyers, right? So
Well, and I had a client that had moved from Pittsburgh, rented for 6 months. And, she was, very intelligent and understood what was going on. And she said to me, I do not want to see a house that is not going to pay you because I paid in Pittsburgh. I'm not paying 2 buyers agents.
Fair.
What I'm finding too is that all my sellers pretty much pay a commission, but the agents on the other end, at first you get a lot of calls. Are you paying a commission? Are you paying a commission? I remember Andrew saying, don't even ask that.
yeah,
Just write the purchase agreement. But then I'm also finding too, even with the seller paying a commission, people that work with investors, they've already discussed that you're gonna pay me, period. I'm finding, you know, so they're getting paid twice, you know, so.
Yeah, I have had, I will say, percentage wise, I'm making more money with buyers than I ever have before.
Love
Because
that.
I just said 3%.
Absolutely.
And no buyer has gone, oh, they're not paying, and I just had one in Hudson. The agent's only willing to pay 2%. I talked to the buyer, I said they're only willing to pay only 2% of the 3% commission we agreed on a $600,000 house. And they said, not a problem, we'll kick in the extra 1%. Simple as that. So we made way too big of a deal in it in our own minds.
Hmm.
Here's the thing, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's no different than the way I would handle closing costs. I don't know what the offers are. Do you want to see all offers, or do you want to eliminate the ones that are not willing to pay, their own buyer even? You'd probably rather see them all, right?
Yeah.
Then let's encourage anybody to write on the offer.
I
and
think
we'll-
if you have the
we'll-
conversation with the seller up front, your house is gonna sit. I mean, the market, you understand we have that law because your house is sitting longer. If you're buying, you know, agents don't work for free.
Yeah.
You know, it's just having that conversation in the beginning. If you've started with a consultation in the beginning, not just run and take a buyer somewhere, sit down and meet with them, understand, and they understand what's going on, you don't, it's not a problem. Like you said, it's in here that people have.
At the end of the day, I've had only one deal where a seller refused and a buyer was like, no, we're going to make sure that commission's paid. We gave two different prices and it was exactly the same net for the seller.
Hmm.
So it was either an extra 5,000 with the buyer paying commission or less 5,000 with the seller paying the whole thing.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, the seller still even refused at the higher number. It's very odd, but we did get the deal done at the lower number. The buyer paying commission made no difference to them.
Love that. So all of that sounds really good.
Mhm.
And I've heard it's probably just best to wait to list my house until May. So
Again, this is a conversation to have. What's the most important thing in what this one that we have written down? What's the most important thing to you about selling your house?
that I make the most money possible, or that I net the most money.
That you net the most money. Now, if that is true, it is possible that I might encourage you to be looking probably closer to April. Do we want to list when everybody else is listing, or do we want to list when there's no competition?
I would probably say when there's no competition.
Right, literally 2 years ago, in that example, no houses in Chesterland between 400 and 500. My client wanted to wait until May. Guess what happened the week he listed? 5 houses between $400 and $500 the same week. It was crazy. Before that, he was the only one in the market. With that being said, often price is not the only thing that's concerning. And I don't know if there's multiple decision makers here. You also mentioned to me that you have a job transfer that you need to be in your house by March, or that would be a crazy example, by April.
Yeah.
If that's true, we have to have a different conversation about that. You told me that you want to, another example, I had this exact one last week. I need to sell my house before I can buy, but I need the proceeds from my house. So I have a limited amount of homes that I can see to actually get it. So I said, we're going to wait until May or June because you wanted the grass to look really nice. And then give yourself 2 weeks to find a house, or should we start looking for a house now? And then, so problem solve around that. The bigger one though, if they are looking for price, you got to advise accordingly. Yes, June, July, August are typically the highest for closings, but when do those go under contract?
May.
Month or two.
April, May. What do we do? We need to be listing when there's no competition, not when there's ton. What else?
Yeah, this is really great. Thank you so much. You answered almost all my questions. I do want to let you know, like, I'm not going to sign right now because I have like 3 other realtors coming to interview with me today.
Great. Well, I appreciate the honesty and transparency. Who are those other agents out of curiosity?
Kate Johnson,
Oh boy.
Ryan Young, Matt Chase, and Jeff Wang.
I can appreciate it. Sounds like you're the type of person that wants to know all of your options before making a decision.
Definitely.
I assume you value time as well?
Yeah, I have kids and toddlers and babies and 7 kids.
Wow. Sounds like you probably should make a decision sooner than later. First off, is there anything that I left unanswered?
No, I don't think so. You really did answer all my questions.
I'm really glad to hear that. So it sounds like you're just looking for time to think about this, right? And actually interview the other agents and see if you're missing anything.
Yeah. I want to just see what their strategy is, if it's, something that resonates better with me, I guess.
So I take two options at this point. Number one, I'm going to push and just go, let's go ahead and save each other some time and save the other agents time, because I'm sure that you value their time as well.
Yeah.
Kids and home and everything else. Here's what we'll do. Let's go ahead and finish. I already filled out. We filled out as we were talking. All the price, the listing terms, all that. I want you to go ahead and sign this, and I'll take it back to my office. And you can call me tomorrow and I'll rip it up if you decide that you want to interview those other agents. Because I want you to have some time to think on it. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Perfect. If she goes, Eric, I just want to think about it, then here's what I do. I go, great, Kate, go ahead and sign here. And we'll give you the pen. I say, you're going to hold this listing agreement. Go ahead and think about it overnight. But this way, you know all of the areas to sign, only on the listing agreement, but the property disclosure. It'll only take us 30 seconds now. That way, you and I don't have to meet again in a couple of days or whatever that may be to go ahead and move forward. If she signs, the likelihood that she's going to continue to work with me is probably 90%.
But you're gonna have her sign the listing agreement and the residential property
I'm
disclosure
going to have her sign everything, super guy, everything, and say, you go ahead and hang on.
with no
to it.
date on it, with no dates.
Correct. No dates, especially on the listing agreement specifically.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead for the sake of time. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're signed and you're comfortable with holding the documents, right?
Yep, yeah.
Perfect. Fair enough. I'll go ahead. I'm going to check with my photographer as well. If you choose, I could actually see, it looks like he's available Friday. So if you give me a call tomorrow, we can still line you up for Friday. I'll make sure that he holds that open. I can drop off the sign Friday. We'll have it up on the market in an open house for Sunday. We'll start our marketing strategy, so on and so forth. What that is I'm doing the following. If I'm just simply going sign here, that's not the time for silence. Right? Go ahead and sign here. I can go ahead and get the listing photos up and think through the whole process. Right? By the way, if you interview 5 or 6 agents, how many of you would want to call 5 or 6 people and tell them they can get the job?
Ooh, no.
I'll go ahead and take that off your plate, Kate. I can actually call and cancel before they come out. We all appreciate that as realtors because now we already know that your mind is made up.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Fair
I
enough.
love that.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and call Ryan, Kate, and whoever else.
I think that was I learned that script or that tactic like first bold that I ever took maybe in like 2015.
Yeah.
I think that was a Diana.
So you're saying that you would call the other agents and
And
say, hey,
cancel their
listen,
appointment.
you don't have this appointment anymore with Kate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I've been on both sides of that call. Yeah.
yeah. I love it.
And honestly,
I love real
if somebody
estate.
does have their mind made up, it's going to infuriate me if you're taking my time away from my family at 6 o'clock at night when I already know that your mind is made up with somebody else. So,
Yeah, I love that. That all sounds good. I'm ready to sign. I do want you to know though, this is as is. I will not be making repairs. I don't have the money. I don't have the desire. I don't care. It's as is.
Sure. Let's go ahead and get you signed up. I can't control what a buyer is going to offer, right? You understand that?
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that it states in the MLS that the house is as is. I'm going to negotiate it that way. I want to be clear though. We haven't gone through a home inspection, an appraisal, or a point of sale. My job is to come up with solutions, not just present problems. So if I can come up with a solution to still let you get the right amount of money, make sure that you can move to Broadview Heights in this $500,000 house, would that be acceptable if we take on the stress of the repairs?
Yes, yes.
I hear what you're
Who's
saying.
we taking on this? Who's taking on the repairs?
Taylor and I would do that. If you know my assistant Taylor, we would schedule the repairs, right? Often, again, Kate might just be saying, I don't have 20 grand to put in a septic system. Right?
I actually love that point because that is in my mind when I was telling you I don't care. That is like I didn't say it out loud, but my mind was saying like I don't want to pay $30,000 or I cannot pay $30,000 for a roof and all new appliances.
There are 2 reasons why people don't want to do repairs. Number 1 is what?
Money.
And number 2 is
Time.
stress, all of the scheduling. I got ripped off by a contractor.
So you say
whatever.
take on the repairs, you're gonna take, you're not taking on the expense, you're just taking on the, getting the contractor.
One of the best things that you can tell your clients, and I use this all the time, and I see them like, just like finally like melt and go like, oh, thank you so much, is tell them this is going to be a stressful process. I want you to lean on me to take the stress off of you.
I like that.
Be ready for it. There's going to be challenges. I will come up with solutions. Jeff Longo did a phenomenal class years ago of how to come up with solutions to problems you don't know the answers to. And it was literally just like a flow chart of like, how do you solve these odd challenges? And there's so many solutions out there. I wish Wendy Milligan was in here. She had a crazy challenge last year, and the solution looked like it wasn't there, and we were able to solve it through a couple of quick conversations. We have to figure out solutions to our buyers and sellers' problems. Doesn't mean that the deal is dead.
What's so funny about that too is I recently just moved in January, and honestly, the most stressful part for me, I'm super Heidi. I hated calling and setting up gas, electric, Wi-Fi. That was the most stressful part.
Right.
It wasn't like negotiating. It wasn't like listing. It was literally for me.
Yeah.
I can't stand waiting on the phone and being like, this is the new address. Like, please set up at this time. And then they're like, okay, well, when you move in, we'll be here then. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be there then. So like, I
Right.
appreciate understanding. Like, it might not be like that I don't want to do the repairs. It's just I don't want to call a contractor, or I don't want to wait for them, or I don't
Right.
want to set that up. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's super powerful. I'm trying to decide if there's anything here in our pre-notes that are quote unquote more valuable. I'm hesitant about working with you, Eric, because I really like you. But it honestly just seems like you're a little bit newer to the business. You told me you got licensed, last year. And Kate Johnson has been licensed since 2015. So I want to use you, but this is like my house we're talking about.
Probably the most valuable asset you either have owned or will ever own that you're selling. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's incredibly important that you choose the right agent.
Yeah.
So you're looking at another agent who's got how many listings?
I don't know how many listings she's had, but she's done this for 10 years, 20 years.
I just pulled it up. She's actually got 10 active listings right now.
Hmm.
How excited do you think she is about selling your house compared to the other time?
I don't know.
Do I seem like I'm excited about selling your house?
Yes.
I'm going to give you my full attention.
Hmm.
I am so incredibly excited to be able to tell everybody in my career, you had the first house that I'm going to be selling. So I love the opportunity.
Yeah.
I started when I was 19. I was getting licensed when I was 18. There was no hiding back then that I was a new agent. So when this comes on, I literally wrote down all of my negatives about being young in the business. And I said, how can I turn these into being positive? Right? So very important. If you're new in the business, don't overspeak during that conversation. The fewer words you can say, the more pause you can take, the more it's going to hit home with them. If you start going, I used to be in the business for like 6 months and I watch HGTV and I can't tell you how excited I am about being in this business. And trust me, I've rented other houses for family friends, and I've bought 2 houses, and I've done this, and I did home repair. Like, stop it. Very simply, I'm really excited about your house being the first one for me to sell. And I'm going to put my full time and attention into your home. The other agents out there, you might call them for 3 or 4 days without even getting a response. How long did it take you to call that other agent and get a response out of them? Took them 3 days to return the call to come over here for a listing appointment. I want you to think about that.
I love that. This is very, very similar. But Eric, I haven't seen your names on a lot of signs around town. And honestly, doesn't it make sense for me to use someone that has a more recognizable name? No offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved this one with expired because I would go right to. I'm curious, Kate, how did you find your last agent?
I called their name on the sign.
You called their name on the sign,
Yeah.
right? And they were the local hero, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And the house expired.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like the name on the sign is selling the house, is that right?
I guess you're right about that.
Or is it the actions that an agent puts behind getting a listing sold?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So your action plan behind your value proposition is everything to them. If you don't have a great value proposition, you're going to struggle against that no matter what. I've listed all over town, no matter where I list my houses, I get them sold. Is that what you want, or just an agent who can only sell in Pepper Pike?
Yeah, I wanna go with your way. Can someone give me a time check?
It's 10:38.
It's 10:38. Is there any other objection handlers that we're thinking of? Any other notes for Eric before we conclude?
What was the podcast you were referencing at the very beginning?
So which podcast what was I referencing?
It was when you were talking about, when you're kind of the active listening, the rephrasing of what they said, but in a better way.
Yes,
Referencing the podcast.
that was with Jordan Peterson. I would have to look and see which podcast he was hosted with someone else. If you don't know
More
Jordan,
than a specific like person's podcast or something.
no, it was something that I ran across, but I can't remember the name of the podcast, but it was definitely from Jordan Peterson.
It almost sounded like the technical empathy that Chris Voss talks about.
Sure.
Never split the difference.
Yeah.
Ooh,
If you
that's
don't
the
know
one.
Chris Voss, yeah, he's phenomenal. Lastly, I will just mention this one. That's what I had the video queued up for. We're not going to do it. How many of you are concerned about a housing crash?
Brett's like.
A lot of people have been mentioning it about a housing crash, and I watched this 10-minute video talk all about statistics that this year it's going to be it. Everything's aligned for it. We're raising spending, prices are way up, all the other crazy things. This guy's got over 250 subscribers. Every piece of evidence for 10 minutes was showing that the housing market was going to fail this year. What I didn't tell you is that was in 2021 that he put that video out. And in 2022, the same videos. In 2023, 2024. I don't know if it's going to crash, but I can tell you since I've been in business in 2005, there's been predictions of it crashing. Including in 2017, I watched a great guy on stage believe 100% it was about to crash, and what happened.
Ooh, that one kind of gave me goosebumps. I like that one.
So
Are people hearing that when they're
I
talking?
heard, Yeah.
That we're in a recession or the market's crashing or?
But I told them not.
I have no idea. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I can tell you that there's 16 houses for sale right now in Pepper Pike, and
Right.
Better hurry before it does.
14. There's 14 that are in contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. That one, that's a good one.
All right. Well,
Can we
Thanks.
have a hand for Eric? Thank you so much for pouring into us today.
of course.
Absolutely.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, Eric.